I gotta say, whenever I hear the name Denzel Washington, I immediately think, wow, what a legacy.
Yeah.
Like 2 Oscars, a ton of Golden Globes. I mean, the guy is a legend in Hollywood, right? But it always struck me that it's more than just the amazing acting.
Yeah.
Like there's this real sense of him giving back and doing things the right way that kind of shines through in his whole career.
I think you've hit on something really interesting there, and it kind of leads perfectly into what we're diving into today.
Okay.
We're looking at Denzel Washington's impact, which is already pretty massive, through the lens of something that the late Reverend Dr. Myles Munroe called kingdom principles.
Okay.
And, this isn't about like some rigid religious stuff.
Right.
It's more like, think of it as a powerful set of ethical and spiritual guidelines, really, for leadership that are all about, actually changing society for the better, rooted in strong moral character. It's a way to think about how to maximize positive influence with real intention, purpose, and integrity behind it.
So in this deep dive, and, keeping our listeners in mind, you guys shared a lot of materials with us about Denzel's philanthropy, his public statements, challenges facing Black America, all that.
Right.
We're going to unpack how these kingdom principles, concepts like leading through service, being responsible with what you've been given, acting with integrity, those kinds of things.
Yes.
Could actually offer a fresh perspective on the impact he's already having.
Absolutely.
And maybe even point to some possibilities for even greater contributions, especially when it comes to tackling some of those really key issues within the Black community. We saw, a lot of discussions in the material you guys sent in about his work with young people, his dedication to education, different things focused on empowerment and stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely. And our goal here is not to just list off everything that Denzel Washington does, but to really dig into the principles, that might be driving his actions.
Yeah.
What are the implications of that? What can we learn about leadership and how to create positive change, by looking at his work through this very specific lens? That's the core of what we're exploring today.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of set the stage. Let's talk about Denzel Washington and the impact he's already had.
Right.
And one of the things that immediately jumps out is his long involvement with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. That's been going on for a while, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like just a quick endorsement kind of thing.
No, not at all. It's been over 20 years,
Wow.
And it's way more than just him lending his name to it.
Yeah.
He's a vocal advocate. He's very active. He raises awareness. He raises a lot of money for those after-school programs, especially in underserved communities. I think this says a lot about his genuine dedication to helping young people, during those critical years when they're developing.
Yeah.
You see a real investment there in laying a strong foundation for the next generation.
And it's not just youth organizations, right? He's also been a big supporter of his alma mater, Fordham University.
Oh, absolutely. He's made some pretty substantial donations, funding scholarships, creating opportunities for students who might not otherwise be able to afford higher education.
Yeah.
His contributions have also gone to improve facilities at the university, make the learning environment better for everyone.
Right.
If we think about stewardship, right, that idea of being responsible with what we've been given, which is part of those kingdom principles, I think his actions demonstrate a real commitment to nurturing potential in others, specifically through education. It's not just giving money away.
Right.
It's about making a real investment in the future.
It's not just education either, right?
Right.
He's also involved with healthcare initiatives.
He is. He's supported a variety of organizations and programs focused on improving medical services and health education,
Yeah.
particularly in communities that are often marginalized or overlooked. This shows a real concern for the well-being of the entire community, which really fits with that principle of compassion, which is, deep empathy and a willingness to respond to people's needs and suffering.
Right.
It's about addressing those really basic human needs.
It's interesting to me, even when he's not specifically talking about philanthropy or charities or things like that, in his interviews, when he speaks publicly, you often hear these themes, these recurring ideas that really seem to align with these kingdom principles that we've been talking about.
You're absolutely right. You consistently hear him talk about integrity, hard work, service to others, responsibility for how we use the gifts we have, and giving back.
Yeah.
And these aren't just catchy phrases he throws around.
Right.
They seem to be deeply held values that guide how he approaches his whole life, his work, everything.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if these principles are just baked into his decision making, even if he doesn't label them as such.
So now that we have an idea of the impact that he's already had, can we kind of dive a little bit deeper into these kingdom principles? What are they really about?
Definitely. So at the core, there's this concept of servant leadership.
Okay.
And it's a real shift from those traditional models of leadership where it's all about, power and authority.
Right.
Servant leadership puts the needs of others first.
Okay.
It's leading through acts of service. It's about empowering those that you lead, helping them grow. It's more about asking, how can I help you succeed, rather than what can you do for me?
Interesting.
And this is the foundation for creating real and lasting positive change in society, because it builds trust and it inspires people to work together.
So it really flips the script on what we normally think of as a leader, right?
Yeah.
Less about barking orders and more about, supporting people.
Exactly. And then we have stewardship.
Okay.
Which is the idea that everything we have, our money, our talents, our influence, it's not really ours.
Okay.
It's entrusted to us. We're supposed to manage it responsibly.
For a bigger purpose.
Yeah, for something bigger than ourselves.
Got it.
Leaders who operate in this way, they see themselves as caretakers, responsible for, helping things grow, making sure resources are used ethically, and leaving things in better shape than they found them.
Okay. And I imagine integrity is the bedrock of all this.
It really is. It's about being honest,
Right.
having strong morals, and upholding those principles in every part of life, especially as a leader. And for someone like Denzel, who's in the public eye,
Yeah.
it's crucial for maintaining trust and setting a positive example.
Right.
That can have a ripple effect.
Okay, so then influence becomes a tool for something very specific then.
Exactly. It's about actively using your position, your platform, your visibility to advocate for justice, promote peace, and contribute to positive change.
Yeah.
It's not just about being famous, it's about using that fame to do good.
And vision in this context, it's more than just ambition.
Oh, definitely. It's a clear and powerful picture of a better future.
Okay.
But it's grounded in moral principles.
Yeah.
It's the guiding star that informs all those strategies and decisions,
Ah.
always pointing towards the greater good, not just personal gain.
Okay. What about sacrifice?
Yeah.
It seems like that's got to be a big part, especially when you're tackling big societal challenges.
You're right. It often is. True leadership, especially when you're dealing with deeply rooted issues, it often requires putting the needs of others ahead of your own,
Yeah.
especially the people who are marginalized or vulnerable. It may involve making tough choices, unpopular choices, but it's for the long-term benefit of everyone.
Humility also seems like a key part of this framework, to keep the leader grounded.
Definitely. It's recognizing that leadership is a privilege,
Okay.
not a right. It's a responsibility. And it fosters this approachability. You're open to learning from others. You understand that leadership is about serving.
What about unity? It seems like such a powerful concept, especially in diverse societies like ours.
It is. It's about fostering a sense of community.
Yeah.
We all have a shared purpose. We have a responsibility to each other. It involves, bridging divides, promoting understanding, and working together.
Right.
Recognizing we can achieve more together.
And then compassion brings in that human element.
Yes, it's empathy, genuine care for other people.
Yeah.
It drives a leader to act. It's about understanding suffering, responding to needs in the community with real concern, wanting to alleviate hardship.
Earlier you mentioned a spiritual foundation for these principles.
Right.
How does that typically play into things?
For many people who embrace kingdom principles, spirituality provides a moral compass,
Okay.
a source of strength, resilience,
Yeah.
and it gives them a sense of purpose that informs their leadership and guides their ethical choices, especially when things get tough.
Right.
What's interesting is, while these principles may be rooted in a spiritual context for some people, they often show up as just universally recognized ethical behaviors.
So when we look at Denzel Washington's life, his career, through this particular lens, where do we start to see these principles in action?
Well, even early on, in films like Cry Freedom and Glory, which is the one he won his first Academy Award for, you see him portraying characters who are driven by deep integrity and a real commitment to justice.
Yeah.
And these weren't just roles,
Right.
These were stories exploring big moral and societal issues.
Yeah.
I think it suggests a tendency, even early on, to be drawn to projects that have real substance and purpose.
And then he went on to star in these iconic roles that really sparked important national conversations.
Exactly. I mean, think about Malcolm X, Philadelphia, Training Day. These are films that tackle some complex and often uncomfortable topics.
Yeah.
Race relations, the AIDS crisis, corruption. By taking on these roles, he used his platform to engage people with really critical social issues. It's a very real example of that principle of influence in action.
And he didn't just act in those movies, he also directed and produced.
Right, like and Swan Fisher and Fences. He brought these nuanced and powerful stories of Black life to a much wider audience.
Yeah.
I think that can be seen as an act of stewardship.
Okay.
He's using his creative gifts to amplify these diverse narratives and perspectives that are often, underrepresented.
And then, of course, there's what we keep coming back to is actions off screen.
Right.
The mentorship he provides to younger actors, his consistent message of integrity, discipline, faith.
It's a pattern of behavior that really reflects his values.
Yeah.
He leads by example. It's not just about the roles he plays, but how he conducts himself. The values he promotes. This is totally in line with the idea of integrity,
Right.
walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
So let's circle back to his philanthropy. How do we see these kingdom principles shaping his charitable work?
His deep involvement with those Boys and Girls Clubs is a perfect illustration of servant leadership,
Yeah.
He's not just donating money, he's actively involved, he's raising awareness, he's spending time with the kids, he's being a role model. That personal commitment demonstrates a real dedication to their well-being and their future.
And his support for Fordham University, it seems like it goes beyond just, giving back to the school he went to.
It really does. It's a clear demonstration of stewardship, investing in future generations, particularly in the arts, and his support for things like the August Wilson monologue competition. That's a direct way to nurture young talent.
Right.
And ensure that important voices, continue to be heard.
What resonates most with you about these specific choices, in terms of his philanthropy?
I think it's the intentionality of it.
Okay.
It's not random. It's focused on areas where he can make a real difference,
Yeah.
especially for young people and the arts.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And his support for health-related charities, disaster relief. That's really putting compassion into action.
It is. It's a tangible response to suffering, wanting to help people in need.
Yeah.
And his advocacy for arts education, for spiritual and moral development.
Right.
That's him using his influence to promote values he believes in, things that are essential for a good society.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the challenges that Black America still faces today.
Okay.
These are deeply rooted issues, right?
Yes, very complex and entrenched.
Economic disparities, barriers in education, healthcare inequities, the criminal justice system. These are big problems with long histories.
Absolutely. And they're all interconnected.
So how does Denzel's current philanthropy intersect with these challenges?
Well, his focus on education and the arts directly addresses some of those core barriers, right? By providing scholarships, supporting these programs, nurturing artistic expression, he's creating pathways for people to have more opportunities, which can lead to greater economic mobility, enhance their creativity, boost their self-esteem.
Right.
All of which are essential for overcoming these systemic challenges.
Given how persistent these issues are, how could his platform be used even more effectively?
I mean, with his visibility and the respect he commands,
Yeah.
his voice carries a lot of weight.
Right.
He has a powerful platform to advocate for social justice, for policy reforms that directly address those systemic problems.
Okay.
Partnering with organizations that are already deeply involved in this work could really multiply his impact.
That makes sense.
It's about using his influence to push for systemic change, alongside individual empowerment.
So what are some ways Denzel could expand his initiatives,
Okay.
to empower Black men and women even further through this lens of kingdom principles?
There are a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
Expanding mentorship programs specifically designed for young Black people, connecting them with successful role models. That would be a strong example of servant leadership in action.
Right.
Guiding and supporting the next generation.
Right.
Establishing entrepreneurship programs, not just giving them funding, but also training and resources.
Yeah.
That could help create more economic independence and wealth within communities, which is a direct application of stewardship.
What about healthcare?
Supporting, maybe even creating initiatives with healthcare facilities in Black neighborhoods that would address those issues of access to quality care.
Right.
It's a very real way to show compassion. Increased funding for arts programs in underserved communities that can provide vital outlets for expression, build community, foster creativity.
It seems like housing could be a big one too, right?
Absolutely. Exploring housing initiatives, aimed at increasing Black home ownership could really tackle wealth inequality.
When it comes to criminal justice reform,
publicly advocating for reforms, supporting organizations working on those issues. That aligns directly with that kingdom principle of justice, investing in technology access.
Right.
That can bridge the digital divide, which is so important now for education and jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Providing scholarships specifically for adult learners who are trying to improve their skills or go back to school. Because the path to empowerment isn't always straightforward.
Right.
Collaborating with other influential figures and organizations, to combine resources. And maybe most importantly, supporting programs that foster self-empowerment. Financial literacy, leadership development, community organizing, things like that. It gives people the tools they need to drive change themselves.
Out of all of those, which ones stand out to you as having the most potential for immediate and widespread impact?
Well, focusing on economic empowerment through things like entrepreneurship and addressing educational disparities. I think that could create some significant and lasting change.
I agree. You're giving people the tools for self-sufficiency, access to education. That's laying the groundwork for real progress. And breaking down those systemic barriers. I think it's really helpful to see how these principles, which seem kind of abstract, can actually translate into real-world concrete actions.
Absolutely.
Are there other examples of people who have used these principles in their own fields?
Definitely. Looking at how others have done it can provide a lot of insight and inspiration. Think about Tony Dungy. He's emphasized character development and servant leadership in the world of sports. Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, he built his business on principles that prioritize employees' well-being and a strong sense of values. And of course, Mother Teresa, her life was an incredible example of selfless service and compassion for those in need.
What about media and business? Any examples there?
Oh, yeah. Oprah Winfrey, she's used her huge platform to promote positive social change and education, really using her influence. And Warren Buffett's philanthropy, it's marked by strategic giving and a strong sense of stewardship. Martin Luther King Jr., his leadership in the civil rights movement was deeply rooted in his spiritual beliefs and his unwavering pursuit of justice.
What about the arts and community development?
Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's used his talent to promote education and dialogue around important social issues. Wangari Maathai's environmental activism, her Greenbelt movement, that was an amazing example of grassroots environmental stewardship. Magic Johnson's investments in urban development have been focused on economic empowerment in those communities. And even former President Jimmy Carter, he continues to embody service and humility in his work, even after leaving office.
Wow, that's a lot of really different examples. It really shows how these principles can be applied effectively across so many different areas.
Exactly. They're not just niche concepts. They're fundamental to effective and ethical leadership and to creating real positive impact.
So it sounds like Denzel Washington, with his unique combination of influence, talent, and this commitment to giving back, is really well positioned to embrace these principles even more in the future.
Absolutely. By intentionally integrating these kingdom principles, putting service first, acting with integrity, being a responsible steward of his resources and influence. I mean, his potential to make a positive impact is huge.
As we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that he holds this amazing position where incredible artistic success meets a genuine dedication to helping others.
Exactly. And the choices he's made, the roles he's taken, his philanthropic focus, they've already shaped our culture, empowered so many people.
It's inspiring to think about what's possible, in terms of even more profound and far-reaching change.
It really is. His continued support of new talent, his advocacy for social justice, could be a real catalyst for progress.
So, as you, our listeners, reflect on this deep dive into Denzel Washington's impact through this lens of kingdom principles, we want you to think about this. How can individuals, whether they have global influence or they're working in their own communities, how can they leverage ethical and spiritual principles to create lasting positive change?
That's the big question.
And what specific kingdom principles resonate most with you in your own life, in your own sphere of influence?
Think about that.
That's something to really ponder.